what you could do with some stale bread if you had some left over, or if you had some leftover croutons from last Sunday night's supper, or if you had some leftover garlic bread from the spaghetti dinner you had the night before. Well, I have a great use for it, a panzanella salad. The more stale the bread, the better the salad, interestingly enough. And what we're going to do is make a beautiful, colorful salad using the fall's and the summer's nice tomatoes that are left. And you can also use watermelon. You could use any sort of vegetable or fruits you have. Just mix up colors, mix up textures and shapes, and you have a beautiful salad. So what I'm using today is I've got some fresh tomatoes. They're nice and juicy. And I've got some fresh fennel. Now, fennel and anise are a very similar vegetable. It has a licorice flavor. So I'm going to sprinkle some the fennel into this. And the tomatoes and the fennel will add nice licorice and yet a sweet flavor. All right. So we've got some fennel and tomatoes so far. The next thing I'm going to add is a cucumber. You can use the cucumbers that you have in your garden. If you had zucchini, that would be a perfect substitute for that. And look at these beautiful yellow and green peppers. I chose yellow and green because I have red tomatoes and I want to show those off. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle my red tomatoes with my yellow and green peppers. And I have beautiful, beautiful purple onions, which are going to be outstanding for color. If you don't like onions and you didn't want to put them in, that's okay. Or you could use green onions, or you could use possibly a leek if you like to, and you had that left over. The other couple ingredients we're going to add are some capers. Capers are a little bud that have a sour pickly flavor, and they're very salty. So I want to add my capers before I salt my salad so I can taste it. And I'm also going to add some beautiful torn basil leaves. Basil will turn brown as soon as you pick it, so you really, really want to do these basil leaves at the very last minute. Okay, so I have it in actually pretty big pieces because I want to see my basil. And watch what happens, watch the magic, what happens when I stir this. Look how beautiful that is. You have the purple, and you have the green, and you have the red, and the yellow, and the fennel, which has that wonderful licorice taste. So there's my salad part of the recipe. They're all mixed up together, ready for those toasted bread cubes. Next thing I'm going to do is make a vinaigrette. I want to make my vinaigrette in a bowl. I can use the same bowl that I had my fennel in. And I'm going to use a Dijon mustard, which will give it some zip. So I'm going to put my Dijon mustard in my bowl. Okay. And you can use any kind of white or red vinegar you have. I happen to have some white balsamic, which I really like. Has a little bit of sweetness. Now when you're making a vinaigrette, you're going to have to whisk in the oil quickly so that it doesn't separate too fast. So you have that nice yellow color. I'm going to go ahead and add some salt and pepper to this for a little zip, some seasoning, and some fresh garlic and some shallots. Lots of flavor in this one. It's going right up my nose, and boy, is it going to be good. And last but not least, you can use avocado, corn, peanut, but I have a nice, beautiful extra virgin olive oil, which has a nice green hue and a bit of a peppery bite. So I want to whisk my olive oil in slowly so I'm making an emulsion. That means that the oil and vinegar are combining and not separating. So I'm slowly drizzling my olive oil in, gradually a little bit at a time. And I want enough dressing to cover my beautiful breadcrumbs and my vegetables. And that looks just perfect. Look at that. Okay. And very, very last minute of the day, or right before you're serving it, what you want to do is add your bread. I've got nice toasted bread, and I've actually coated it with olive oil and garlic powder. Now, garlic powder works really well in this situation because it combines with the salt and the olive oil easily. If you use big chunks of garlic, it may not necessarily combine real well on top of the bread. Now, I don't have to add all of that bread. I can add as much as I want. If I added too much bread, what's going to happen is it's going to end up soaking up all the dressing, and it's going to end up to be mushy. So I want to keep them toasty, and boy, look at this. I'm going to put a little Parmesan cheese on there, and you have an Italian salad that you're just using leftovers in. So I'm going to drizzle my dressing right on top of this, And again, I'm going to serve my salad very quickly right after I'm drizzling my dressing on. And I'm going to mix it up, and you'll see that lovely olive oil coating that caper, fennel, basil, onion, tomato, and pepper salad, giving it sheen and flavor like you have not seen before. So there you go, your beautiful panzanella salad using leftover bread. Ever heard of strange flavored eggplant? Well, we're about to make some. Eggplant, again, is a fall vegetable that's available floating around now. You can use Chinese eggplant, you can use Japanese eggplant, you can use regular conventional eggplant. I roasted 2 conventional eggplants. I actually salted them, and I roasted them in the oven with a little olive oil for 1 hour, and they ended up to look like this, seeds and all, and I took the peel off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add these to a food processor. They're very tender looking. You have a little bit of the skin in, that's okay. That's not going to hurt anything. All right, and the next thing I'm going to go ahead and add is some onion that I've cooked, some garlic cloves that I've cooked, and fresh ginger that I have grated and cooked. I've sauteed this until it's soft and caramelized. So I have this nice hot mixture. This is supposed to be served warm, so we don't need to heat it as such, but this mixture will help it warm. And that has caramelized all of those onions. If you could smell this, you would be so happy right now. Okay, we've got the onions and the garlic and the ginger. Yum, yum, yum. All right, so we've got that in there. Now we need to add some other things. I'm going to go ahead and add some soy sauce and some sesame oil. Now, sesame oil is not something you would saute with. It's an oil that's used just for flavor. And we're going to add that sesame flavor to this. And there's a sherry vinegar in here, right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I used olive oil. You could use any oil you had. And I have some brown sugar last and not least, which makes it sweet. And I'm going to add some chili flakes. And you can certainly adjust that for your taste. Now I can taste it. I want to make sure that I have enough salt in here. If I don't, then I can always add soy sauce to it. Delicious. It's wonderful. It's sweet and spicy, and it's caramelized. It's great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ladle some of this. It's nice and warm into a bowl. Ooh, that's just great. And I'm going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil on top and a little parsley. Enjoy your eggplants for the fall. Today we're going to make some pumpkin Parmesan stuffed shells. Now traditionally you'd see a tomato sauce on a stuffed shell, maybe with some mozzarella cheese and some ricotta cheese. But today we're going to use a bit of a different spin on that, using pumpkin, one of our fall vegetables. So this dish honestly could not be easier. It's a great dish, and it uses a lot of canned pumpkin and things that you have in your pantry already. So let's give it a try. Our first part of the dish, there's 3 parts of the dish. There's the assembly, which we're going to do at the end. There's the filling and the sauce, which is what I'm going to start with. In this bowl, I've got some chopped up fresh sage. You can use dried sage if you like, but the fresh really gives it that nice flavor. All I have here is 1 can of pumpkin, just a can of pumpkin that you would use in a pie. And I'm mixing it. I'm mixing the sauce cold, and it makes it a whole lot easier. And then we'll just pour it over the stuffed shells when we're ready to go. So that's a can of pumpkin. We're going to put some Parmesan cheese in it. I've already pre-grated that, so we're going to put some of the Parmesan cheese in there. Okay. I've got some fresh garlic, always a good thing to have in a pasta dish. All chopped and ready to go. I've got some chopped parsley, again from my garden, which makes it look really pretty, and it does give it a little bit of a sweet flavor to it. Okay. And I have some heavy cream, makes it nice and rich. It's going to give it some nice creamy color, and it's going to build the liquid portion of our sauce. Okay. There we go. And I've got some nutmeg and some salt and pepper to give it a little seasoning. And I'm going to mix this up. Now I want this about the consistency of a tomato sauce like you would use in a regular stuffed shell. But look at that beautiful orange color we've got with that pretty green. It's going to be really, really pretty on top of our stuffed shells. Now to thin it down, because we're going to continue to cook our shells in the oven, you'll need a little bit of liquid in here to continue to cook the noodles. I'm going to add about 2 cups of chicken broth, and that's going to serve as the basis for the bottom of our pan and the top of our sauce. So this is a cold sauce. It's all ready to go. That couldn't have been easier. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to mix our filling. I've pre-cooked some chicken. I've got a big bowl here. I've got eggs in here, whole eggs, again with the sage right into the filling. And I'm going to go ahead and add some ricotta cheese, which is going to add some thickness and some richness. And I'm going to go ahead and add some diced chicken. Now I could use ham, I could use bacon. I have all kinds of options here. I could make it a vegetarian one and put some corn in here, but I'm going to go ahead and use chicken because my family likes chicken. To give it some crunch inside the filling, I'm going to give it some walnuts, which are going to add some crunch and toastiness. I've already pre-toasted those walnuts in the oven. And the secret ingredient to a stuffed shell or a lasagna, some breadcrumbs, because that keeps it from getting runny. Have you ever made like a lasagna or a stuffed shell and all the sauce runs everywhere and the cheese runs everywhere? The breadcrumbs actually keeps it nice and together so that you do not have a runny situation. And we're going to add some mozzarella cheese, but if you had any other cheese, you can certainly use cheddar. You could use Swiss, whatever you had. Mozzarella is a nice melting cheese. Fontina would be great in here also. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to go ahead and add is, of course, it's a Parmesan stuffed shell. We're going to go ahead and add some Parmesan cheese to this. That looks like enough for an army, doesn't it? We got an army coming, so we're all good. All right, I'm going to mix this up. And if I needed to moisten that, I could certainly add some more chicken broth. And you also, when you're baking this, you want to make sure that this is all cooked on the inside. So you could use a thermometer to check the inside because it has raw eggs in it. And there's really no pumpkin component to the filling, but that's okay. We have lots and lots of pumpkin in the sauce, and a lot of pumpkin goes a long way. All right, so we're going to ladle a little bit of the sauce on the bottom so that I can coat the bottom. Now I have greased this pan. Okay, I'm not going to make an entire big pan because you know what I want to do? I want to save some of my fillings for tomorrow night. In fact, if I wanted to, I could actually take these stuffed shells, put them all together, stuff them, freeze them on a cookie sheet, and then I could pull them out as I needed them and put just enough for a family of 4 or however number of family members you have right in the pan, and we can bake it at that point after it's been frozen. So I'm going to take my stuffed shell in my left hand, and I'm going to add some of this filling. My shell has been pre-cooked, but not too much. I still have a bit of chew to it. This is the gooey part where you get your hands in it, and that's all the fun part. And I want to overfill it because the shell is going to continue to bake, and I want to put it seam side down in my pan. I'm going to ladle a little sauce on here. You don't want to overcover your shells because what you want to do is be able to serve these at the end. So if you crowd too many shells in there, then you're going to try to take your spoon, pull them out, and you're going to pierce them all, and they're going to be a mess. So make sure you leave enough room. So you see I've left enough room in between. Not quite that much room for you, but if you leave enough room in between the shells, then they're going to grow and puff I'm just going to pop this in the oven in the way it is, and look how beautiful that is. Pumpkin Parmesan stuffed shells. It's delicious. Now you aren't going to believe this, but if you have a boatload of tomatoes from your garden, what can you do with it? You can make tomato ice cream. That sounds strange, but yes, it's true. You can make tomato ice cream, and you can put basil in it and a little sugar, and it's delicious. And what we're going to do is we're going to make some tomato ice cream, and we're going to melt it over hot pasta so it's going to ooze everywhere. If it sounds strange to you, if you think about it, a tomato cream sauce over pasta doesn't sound too strange at all. So it's very similar. It's just kind of nice presentation. Okay, so I have some milk, whole milk, and I have some heavy cream heating in this pot, and I'm going to sprinkle about 1/4 cup of sugar in here. You don't want much more than 1/4 cup. And I'm going to stir this. And I want to cook my basil until it's very limp. And it sounds strange to have limp basil, but I'm looking for the ice cream to get a slight green tint, not to turn green like mint or fake mint ice cream or anything, but I want my basil to flavor the ice cream. And I have my cream and my milk really rather hot right now. So I'm going to teach you a really fun technique that you can use to make a richer ice cream than just milk and cream, and it's called tempering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some egg yolks to this cream and milk as if we didn't have enough calories, but I'm telling you it's worth it. It's really, really good. And this is the same technique that you could use to make a stirred custard or a pie filling or even perhaps a mousse. Okay? So what I'm doing is I've got my hot cream and I've got my hot milk in here, and I've got beaten egg yolks here. So very, very gradually I want to spoon my hot milk into my egg yolks so as I don't take the egg yolks and turn them into scrambled eggs. I want it very, very, very slowly drizzled in. I want to cook my egg yolks, and at the same time I want to get them right up to a warmer temperature, so if I added these egg yolks to this pan, they won't turn to scrambled eggs. See, if I poured these egg yolks right in here, you'd get scrambled eggs also, so you really don't want to do it. So it's called tempering eggs. It's a great technique. And so I'm going to drizzle my hot milk and drizzle in slowly while I'm beating my egg. And I really want my egg to keep moving, so I'm drizzling my milk slowly. And you'll notice that I'm getting bubbles in my eggs, and you'll notice I'm getting them thinner, and they're turning a bit of a lighter yellow shade. And you notice I'm not having any lumps. Now at the very end, before we put this in the ice cream freezer, which I have here ready, I'm going to want to make sure I drain this mixture so that if I did have any lumps, I want to get them out. I'm going to continue to add about 1 cup of my milk and my cream mixture to my eggs. And you can see they're getting a nice light color. And I can speed up the rate at which I add this milk and cream at the very end. And I believe I have about 1 cup in that mixture there. So you can see it's very liquidy, and I can feel that it's warm. So it's not going to be a shock to the poor little eggs when they go right in the milk and cream. So I'm going to pour my eggs slowly back into my milk and cream here. Okay, and I'm going to try not to spill, but sometimes that happens. And I'm going to continue to whisk as I'm doing this so I don't get my scrambled eggs. And I'm going to continue to cook this until it gets a little thicker. Now what I want to do is I don't want to put this mixture into my frozen ice cream pan at this point. I want to make sure that my mixture cools off. So you can cool it off with a ice pack, or you can put it in the freezer, or you can put it in the refrigerator overnight. So if you want to do this ice cream, you might want to do it a day ahead. So I want to cook this until my egg mixture thickens a little bit and it starts to coat a spoon. And you can see it's starting to thicken right now. I'm going to have that slightly green color, but as I cook it, it's going to turn a little bit more green because all of those wonderful oils and flavors and colors from the basil are going to get in there. Okay, so what I have done already is I've already chilled some of the ice cream mixture. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my ice cream out that I've already made, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's pre-made. It looks like vanilla ice cream. You can see here that it does not look really any green or anything like that. It has a little bit of a tint. And here's the tomato part. I'm going to take some fresh garden tomatoes and I'm going to pour them into here. Now what I don't want to do is mush my tomatoes so that I turn my ice cream red. I want to fold them into my ice cream, and I'm going to add some toasted nuts. You could use a pine nut, or you could use an almond, which is what I'm using, and I'm going to fold my beautiful tomatoes into my slightly green ice cream, and I'm going to get a little bit of a tomato hue to it, but look how beautiful that's going to turn out. It's almost like when you go to a certain ice cream store and they put mix-ins like gummy bears, only it's a whole lot healthier. How's that? All right, so we've mixed our nuts and our tomatoes in with our ice cream, and you could eat that just as is, and you could just put that in the freezer and it would just be delicious in a couple hours, and it would be nice and solid. Right now it's starting to melt, so I want this ice cream to melt because I want it to melt on top of my hot pasta. And you can bring it out to your guests, and as you bring it out, they'll ooh and ah and say, wow, how did you do that? And you can say, just my little secret, tomato ice cream over pasta. Enjoy.